Bună dimineața. So today is Monday, 11 May, and it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. We are leaving Casa Tamba in Magureni and heading to something Regia. That's our day today. Yesterday we walked from, after being dropped off by the landlord at Casa Tamba at Chaingu Mare, we walked about 11 miles with 1,800 feet elevation gain from there to Magureni, which is where Casa Tamba is. And it was mostly on sort of road like this, sort of a gravel, sandy road. I'd call it a logging road, not a farm road, but it's a numbered road here in Romania that just runs up the valleys. Yesterday we followed this creek the entire way, which was really pretty. Saw all the waterfalls and just had the sound of the rushing water next to us, and it wasn't raining, so that was a bonus. Anyway, we got to Magureni and Casa Tamba at about 2 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon, and we were greeted by the landlord of Casa Tamba, also our driver, and gave us a couple beers and talked about dinner and breakfast, etc. And then he left. So he doesn't live at Casa Tamba. He lives somewhere else. We're not sure where exactly. But he has a lady, I forget her name, and she sort of manages the people that come and stay. She makes the dinners, she makes the breakfast, she makes the bed, she stokes the fire. So we stayed in a cabin that had its own little kitchen and at least three bedrooms, maybe a fourth bedroom up top. Tammy and I had forgot to say. So this is day 39 on our Via Transilvanica trek. I'm Paul, and with Tammy, she's back there. And this is our, like I said, our 39th day on May 11th. Sorry. Okay, back to what I was saying. So the place is just there are two cabins side by side, well, close to each other. And the one cabin houses all the guests with the 3 bedrooms, possibly a fourth up top. And the other cabin is where this lady, this sort of the manager, stays, along with another lady, older lady. I'm not sure the relation or anything. But each of the rooms has its own little wood-fired stove, heater, usually clay, I guess. And yeah, that was nice. She started the fire, warmed up the room. Oh, it was real toasty all night long. We had plenty of firewood to keep it nice and warm, probably warmer than it could have been or needed to be, but it's very, very comfortable. And had a great dinner, soup and pork roast and cabbage and a rice dish that was really good, very filling. And so for Tammy and me, it cost $230 lei per person, so 460 lei total. And we had the honor of sharing our quarters with, not our room, but the cabin with Jackson, whom we met yesterday, who's over here hiking the Via Transilvanica, at least a segment of the Via Transilvanica. So we were able to share stories and learn about his what fors and what he's doing, etc. Anyway, real interesting fella. Can maybe share more about him later, but real nice gentleman. 24-year-old, same age as our youngest son. So it was pretty interesting talking to him. Anyway, yesterday, yeah, so 11 miles, about 1,800 feet elevation gain, according to Tammy's fitness app, and a fairly easy hike. The uphill was really gradual, and it was on this sort of same road, so not so bad. And dang, did we not see a whole lot of fire salamanders. It was pretty cool. Unfortunately, we saw as many alive as we saw, or as many dead as we saw alive, which is kind of sad. But heck, if there are that many on the roads, there are as many or more in the woods. So we think that they're not nearing extinction by any means. So, but pretty cool to see those. What I thought interesting was that they're all right about the same size. So I didn't quite get that. Anyway, one of the neat things about yesterday's hike, for sure, and real pretty, very scenic, lush forests that we walked through. Today we're headed, like I said, to Sarmizegetusa Regia, which is where a 2,000-year-old Dacian fortress used to be, and there are ruins there, so we hope to spend some time touring around there this afternoon. But we've got let's see, maybe a 10-mile day, maximum of 10 miles, and 400, so maybe 1,200 feet elevation gain altogether. But the landlord of Casa Tamba, we paid him to also carry our heavy stuff from here to where we're staying tonight. So we've got lighter loads today, so we should be able to do this. Not, I won't say quickly, but it'll be less of a burden. Anyway, we'll see what today brings. Well, we passed Climber Stone 876 and made a right turn across a bridge across the creek, and our mostly gravel road turned into a mostly dirt road, which now, because of the rain, is a largely muddy road. Not too bad at the moment, so we're happy for that. So a little more about Casa Tamba. Boy, really good. We think well worth the money to stay there. It's a little bit of a trek up the hill from the trail, about 300 meters according to the sign. Somebody scratched in 500 meters on the sign, so it could be. I don't think it's quite 500 meters, but it is almost straight uphill to the cabin from the Via Transilvanica trail. We're getting a little muddier now, but yeah, super friendly hosts for sure. And if you want to stay in an accommodation in Magureni, as far as we can tell, it's the only game in town. There are no other homes that we could see that advertise for a place to stay in Magureni. We did see an advertisement for a pensione or a casare on the way to Casa Tamba, but it was a little bit off the trail. There was a side road and there was a sign pointing toward it, so it wasn't nearly as close to the trail as Casa Tamba. Also, on the signage, there was another one that said there's a cabana, C-A-B-A-N-E, 3 kilometers up from, or 1.3 kilometers up from Casa Tamba, but we've seen no sign of that, and we're well past that point, so we're not sure what that was, but that might be an option. If you're thinking about camping, so our acquaintance Jackson from Colorado, he has a hammock with a canopy that he puts over top when it's wet, He says it does a pretty good job. So the land outside the trail / road is pretty steep on both sides, and there aren't a lot of flat spots near the trail. A few near the creek, but you're really in a damp environment if you want to set up a tent on the ground, or even if you want to try to set up a hammock and be off the ground. But a hammock you could do in the higher elevations and just get to a drier spot, but you're still in the woods because you have to obviously hang the hammock between two trees. Oh, yuck. So there are options for camping in Magureni, but not a lot. You've got plenty of water. The creek runs the whole way almost. Just bring a filter or treatment or something. I wouldn't drink the water. There are pastures nearby, so who's to say what kind of fecal matter is showing up in the creeks. But it is doable. We give great credit to anybody who wants a tent or camp on this entire trail. We always look for camping spots because we've done camping before on long distance trails, and there aren't that many great camp spots that we've seen for much of the trail. I mean, there are some spots that are just ideal. You know, got a mature tree forest, plenty of space between, or you're in a pine forest where it's nice and dry and quiet. So, oh, interestingly, Jackson, the night before, not last night, night before, he set up his hammock near Chayungumare, which is near that Casa Dinu, and set it up near that watering hole. There was a trough with a spigot that could fill the trough, and then there was a sign suggesting that the water was potable. So he set up camp near there. Oh, yuck, here comes the mud. Set up a camp near there, his hammock, but during the middle of the night, he thinks there were a bunch of boars that got riled up. I don't know what you call a bunch of boars. Sure, there's a name, pod or something. And then later on, there were dogs barking at him. As many as 6 at one time, he said, and they got real close to his hammock. Now, granted, if you're on somebody else's land, you really have nothing to say about that. But still, kind of something I hadn't considered about camping, because, you know, all this land is owned by somebody or the government, so you risk, you know, being on somebody else's property and then coming out and saying, hey, what are you doing? So there's that too. But yep, give great credit to anybody who wants to tent or camp on this trail. Boy, you can tell why the folks here use firewood for their heating and fuel. Boy, there's such an abundance of it. And given the population size, it just makes good sense because there's plenty of resources for the folks who live here. Got some loggers in action on the trail, doing what they do best. Oh yeah, little spring coming out of the ground. Fresh water. Looks like they got a little camper up here and these guys stay up here. Boy, the equipment they use is just incredible. Mulțumesc for bună dimineața. It is a little past 10 in the morning, and we just passed kilometer stone 880, which was a cool looking jackrabbit. Big old rabbit carved into the stone. And we are on this lovely trail. It actually just got a little muddy right here, but we passed where they were doing all the logging, and so there's been a whole lot less heavy machinery traffic on this part of the trail, and it's just a pleasure to walk on. It's just shaded, and there's a nice breeze blowing, and the trail ground is soft. Sometimes it's got leaves on it, sometimes not, but just a pleasure to walk on. And it's sort of either a slight incline or a slight decline, a descent or ascent, and just really nice trail walking today, and just made all that much better without having all the weight. But yeah, just beautiful part of the trail. A lot of mature trees that we're walking through. I see beeches on the right, I see pines on the left, and just real pleasant walk so far today, except for the muddy part where the loggers were doing their work. But you know, that's what they do, and it's for good reason. For those of you who care about my shoes, the Hoka Anacapa Breeze Lows that I'm wearing, and I mentioned earlier on in one of the videos, probably several of the videos, talking about how I'm a little concerned about wearing through the treads before the trail ends, and I'm seeing signs of that. So primarily on the rear, and it's just a lot to do with how I walk, just like it would with anybody else and how they walk. But a lot of the tread is wearing thin. It's not all entirely done. Fairly thin on, I think I just saw some bear scat. On the back of my shoes, and then also on the balls of my feet. The tread that is right in the middle of the foot there is getting thin and getting down to the flat part of the sole. So yesterday I tried something. I think I mentioned I brought 2 sets of insoles. I've got the insoles that came with the shoe, which are kind of thin, you know, but they're Hoka, and they're you know, can't come with the shoe, but it's all part of it. And then I also had sort of I won't say a prosthetic insole, but it's an insole that's got a little bit more of an arch support to it. I got it through actually the military medical center to help with my feet and my bunions. And so what I did yesterday, with the hopes of trying to put less pressure on the balls of my feet, I basically doubled up my insoles in my shoe, inside my shoe. So I put the Hokas in there first, and then I put my other insoles on top of those, in both sets of shoes. Not both sets, both shoes. And so I went the full day. Now granted, I didn't have a full weight on my back, just like today. I went the full day with 2 insoles in each shoe. And it was definitely more cushiony. However, because my feet were a little bit higher in the shoe, they squished my feet, at least on my left. My left foot's bigger than my right foot. That's just the way. I don't think anybody's feet are the same size exactly. But anyway, so my left foot toes were squished against the front of my shoe. And so they were kind of sore last night. So today, skipped that, and now I'm back to just 1 set of insoles, the prosthetic ones. And there's nothing fancy about them. They're just, you know, a little bit thicker and sturdier than the ones that come with the shoes. So I'm just back to 1 set of insoles in each shoe. And we're seeing how that goes. My toes don't feel squished, so that's working okay. What I may do, and I've already done this on one of my insoles, is put some duct tape on the bottom of the insole just to give it a little more padding. So I may end up doing that. I haven't done that for the balls of my feet, but I may do that for the balls of my feet, just to put a little more padding there, which hopefully, one, it'll give me a little more cushion, and two, it may create less friction against the tread. I don't know. That's the plan. But sometimes I've got really strange ideas. So we'll see how it goes. A little lizard, not sure what kind, but just saw him and he's sitting there soaking up the sun. One of the many waterfalls we've seen along the trail today. Not sure if this would be here all the time, given that we had so much rain of late, but anyway, pretty while it's here. As it turns out, we're not able to go to the Dacian ruins. It is closed today, open on weekends, but closed. Today's Monday, so it's closed. Funny enough, they have a couple of surveillance cameras at the bottom of the road up to the site, which is 1 kilometer away from the trail. And we were willing to hike up that hill, the kilometer, to go see the ruins. But sure enough, so they do have surveillance cameras out, and we thought, oh, well, they probably know that we're sitting here. So we just kind of sat there, took a break after walking as far as we did, which was about 9 miles from where we started today in Magureni. But while we were sitting there, someone drove up on this road that we're on. So it's a paved road now, and this is the trail. Somebody drove up, a female lady, probably in her 20s or something, and we looked at her, she looked at us, she got out of her car and stopped. There's a gate at the bottom of the hill where the road is up to the site. And she stopped, got out, turned off her car, got out of her car. We looked at her, she looked at us, and she said, "Do you have a question to ask me?" We thought, oh, are you here to arrest us for thinking about going into the site? And no, we didn't ask that. But we did say, hey, is there any chance that we can go into the site and look around? And she said, no, it's under construction and it's closed. It's open on weekends, but closed. And she said you could walk up the kilometer and see the entrance to the citadel, which was apparently a stone wall, or you can see part of a gate or wall, presumably a foundation of something. And it's starting to rain, but she said that's as far as you go. You can't go inside. And we said forget it. We didn't think it was worth the kilometer uphill and then the kilometer back down. And we still have 5 kilometers to go to get to our hotel tonight. So, bummer, we missed out. It might have been kind of cool to see on the weekends, but she did say they're just doing construction around there, and presumably still archaeological stuff too. She did briefly mention that she's a PhD in. She's an architect, not an archaeologist. I said, oh, you're an archaeologist. No, I'm an architect. So she does the drawings of the site for preservation reasons, I presume. So anyway, bummer. So now we're on this road and we're walking the 5 kilometers, we think entirely downhill, to our hotel tonight, which does have a pool, so we're kind of excited about that. And unfortunately, we didn't get Jackson's. We were going to meet Jackson up at the site, but we didn't get his darn WhatsApp contact information, so we couldn't contact him. And frankly, the cell data access is poor coming around these bends and stuff, so I don't know if I could contact him anyway. But anyway, so I asked the hotel via booking.com. They were very responsive, by the way, in finding out about the site anyway. And I asked if they could pass a message to Jackson, because Jackson's spending the night there as well. So we'll see if that works out. But anyway, yeah, unfortunately we didn't get to see the Dacian citadel from 2,000 years ago. Kind of a bummer. But yeah, can't see everything.